The role of a developer is to create and maintain applications and solutions for your customers and partners using Salesforce products, landscapes, and technologies. So, a Salesforce developer should have a strong eye for details. They should have excellent communication skills as well as ability to learn and innovate quickly. So, they also need to have a deep understanding of the Salesforce ecosystem because in case you are suggesting the feature, the type of addition, the type of Salesforce developer org you're using is driven based on the features. So if the feature that you're suggesting is not part of the current environment that your Salesforce partner or your actual customer is using, there is no use of suggesting that feature, which I cannot even access. And if you want to go ahead with it, you'll have to create a new one and then spin org and then use it, which also incurs the additional licensing cost. So the key responsibilities of any developer includes designing and coding, which means I need to write the custom code, I need to develop the integrations, building lightning components. On the same line, I also need to test and implement it. So it's not only about designing and coding. I also need to ensure the software or the application that I'm developing is working efficiently, deployed, and is tested successfully. It meets the requirements or the specifications by your customers. I also need to make sure it is up and running, it is future scalable, and the scope of the application is clearly defined. I also need to set up additional things like troubleshooting in case something goes wrong, monitoring mechanism, your collaboration. How will you collaborate with your entire teams on the new requirements to identify the overlaps between requirements? Or are there any implementations which already provide these kind of features and now I'm enhancing it? So rather than starting from scratch, how I can use the existing one. Then you need to also have the leadership qualities. Why do I need a leadership qualities? When you're a part of a team, you will always have the certain standards to be followed, the frameworks, the best practices. Along with that, as you move along the developer role, you will move from your initial journey to your final, that is your senior developer, lead role, architects, and all those things. So the start itself should be understanding how you can just embed all these mindsets into yourself as well as your teams. And that is only possible through proper communication channels. So, integration, when we talk about, it's not only integration with Salesforce ecosystem, it's also about integrating yourself as a part of the specific team that you are working on. And that is why it is very important to understand what exactly the journey to the development looks like. So now, since we started about what exactly are the orgs, how the orgs are defined. So why do we need orgs in Salesforce? The only intent for using orgs is to isolate the changes, make sure whatever I'm developing is not impacting my live users, as well as all the things that I want to develop or the features I want to test. Sometimes I need to also test the technical feasibility of them. Are they really possible to implement through Salesforce? Or do I need some custom feature? Or maybe there is a different product which Salesforce offers, but it comes with the additional licensing. All these things are only possible when you have a proper organization strategy. So every project goes through first the discovery. Discovery means gathering your requirements. The second phase that is most important is your design. Design means based on the requirements that you have gathered, which are again on high level, not very depth. High level requirements, you come up with the to be architecture. To be architecture means how the system will look like. So you try to understand as is, that is how the current system is built. Then you try to understand and plan and design how the to be architecture will be looking like. The third thing that you need to understand is after you have the requirements, you have the initial high level design with you. Now you need to think about what could be the additional things you might need to consider. Data migrations, the initial startup, or let's say the licenses you might need to procure. Everything is around your Salesforce org. In addition, if you have multiple teams, how I can make sure I have a streamlined flow for all the organizations. The orgs that you develop will be different from the orgs other teams are working, but ultimately they all need to be part of a bigger application. So how I can merge them, which org I need to have where I'll merge my changes with the other team's changes and again test them, then only push to the final environment where my business users can test. All these are part of your designing org strategy. But before you actually design, you need to first understand what are the different types of orgs. There are two types of orgs, which we started learning yesterday. The first one is the one that we call it as a production org. Production means it's a live environment where you actually do your development. This is the application. Actual end user applications use your product from this environment. This is the very reason we do not directly make any changes. And even if there are possibilities that you can change, we do not prefer making any changes directly within your production environment. The second part of it is we have the lower level environments. What do you mean by lower level environments? These are all the environments or orgs which we will be using for interim purposes like testing, UAT, merging. All these possibilities are in the orgs, not on the production. So if I have one developer org and directly pushing my code to the production, or I can have one org which will be telling me, okay, this is a development org. The second one is my testing org. Third one is UAT. Then I have a staging, which is nothing but my org, which will help me give the dry run, a feel of how production go live will work. So before you even push it to the production, we try to imitate the same process in the lower environment. That environments are usually the staging environments. So on staging, you do the dry runs, you try and see what are the issues, if there are any dependencies missing, evaluate, sign off, and then you push the final product on your production environment. So based on this journey, there could be four orgs, there could be multiple orgs. That completely depends on how the configuration is on your customer side. But production orgs are the ones that I request. But what about the lower level environments? Lower level environments are again classified into two. The one which is called as a developer or developer edition, which means it's the one that we will be using. It doesn't come up with any sandboxes. It's the live environment, but that is a best fit for your developments, POCs, anything that you want to evaluate. You can just do it. Any frameworks which are usable, you want to keep it throughout your lifetime. You can keep on improving, but that code is reusable. It's not something very specific to my customers. All these can be retained in your developer edition. Whenever you purchase your Salesforce org, you production, you get some additional boxes. Those we call it as sandboxes. So we have different sandboxes. These sandboxes are nothing but the orgs which are copied or cloned from your Salesforce production environment. Sandboxes are a vital feature of your deployment management that Salesforce offers to help mitigate the risk that features released to the production environment, which will not adversely affect the business operations. Production environments are isolated, independent instances, and in Salesforce Sandbox, you can do all your testings, UAT, or any other functional bug fixing or activities which are not relevant to end users directly. It offers a secure environment where administrators, developers, architects can test and create new features, adaptation evaluations, integrations without compromising actual production environment. So before making any modifications to the end users, companies can test them in sandboxes to make sure they work as planned and they can prevent any detrimental effects on your production processes. There are different types of sandboxes in Salesforce. The first one that is defined is as developer. Now, and remember, this developer sandbox, the one we will be registering is called developer edition. Developer sandbox can only be along with your production environment. So when you purchase a Salesforce actual production environment, you get all these kinds of sandboxes. These are the actual live environments. But the one that we are will be using, that is a kind of a demo or a trial org, you can say. But that is not going to expire. It is going to stay with you. So the first type that we normally use is called as a developer. The second one, a bit lighter version, but a let's say data and metadata heavy is developer pro. And then you have your partial data and finally a full copy sandboxes. So let's start with the right hand side and then we'll come to the left hand side, the developer one. Whenever you purchase Salesforce, you get an environment. Environment means I'll get a username and password for that Salesforce. In Salesforce, every user must have a license. So I need at least base level access. And that access is granted through username and password. But in order to have a username password, I need to have a license. So every time you have the users, you have the number of licenses that you're going to purchase. So actually you purchase the licenses, not the environment itself. So based on the number of licenses, you get the actual environment. Now I have environment. What next? I also get different types of sandboxes which I can spin from my live environment. Why? In real projects or the actual customer development, every time I'm either working off any of the environments, lower level environments that we call, I need to make sure everything that is on production I can access in my Salesforce lower environments. What does it mean? It's like I'm asking you to improve the calculations for interest. And I'm telling you, we have been using an Excel, which is a template with macros and all those things which we have already created. And now you want to improve it. So we want some bug fixes to be done, some enhancements, some new features to be released into it. If I don't give you access to that Excel, how will you improve it? How will you add the new features? So in order to get that, you need the copy of that Excel so that you can understand how it currently works. That is exactly your sandbox. So you do not directly change the original. What you do? You create or you save as and then you work on it so that you can create a version of it. So consider all these sandboxes as the versions of your production environment. So what do they copy from Salesforce live environment then? Think about a scenario where I want to create an application for my HRs, but the application for rest of my company is already existing. So I'm just onboarding the HR application into it. So it's an addition to the existing application. So I need access to the existing application. And that's why I need to clone my production environment. So it will have two aspects of it. The first one, that is your data, records, employee records, your students' records, the interview details, interviewer details, company details, contact details, everything. This is all data, the record that you create in Salesforce. Now, when you clone that, it will also need the data. That's first part. The second part, when I'm talking about a developer, that means I have done some additional code into production environment as well. That also I need because as I mentioned, it's a macro, but that macro is part of an Excel. So if I want to improve it, I need existing macro to improve. Same thing is with Salesforce. I want to write an integration, but that integration is already implemented. It is only a matter of fact that I need to include new fields into that integration to send outside my Salesforce environment. So this code is nothing but metadata. So metadata and data, these are two different things. Data is the record, actual data that you record, the live entities, while Metadata is where or the means to store these data. For example, I want to store employee details. What do you mean by employee details? I need first name, last name, email, addresses, guardian details, and many other details I want to capture. All these I need to define in which format to be captured. Names, text fields, emails. I need email field so that I don't need to validate email again, whether it's an email or incorrect email. So it obviously has to be in the @Gmail, whatever company name.com. So it needs to be in the email format. If I'm asking about the birth date, it needs to be in the date format. Which format? MMDDYY, DDMMYY. This defines the attributes of the data to be captured. That's why these are called metadata. So employee, when I create as an object in Salesforce, is called metadata. Whatever fields I have, those are metadata. Everything that is behind storing that data is metadata. So when you talk about a full copy sandbox, it is exact replica of your production environment as is. You can consider it a Xerox copy of your production environment, including the IDs of your production environment. So if you have created a record, since org can be identified with a unique identifier that is org ID, record can be identified uniquely with record ID. So when you have the full copy, it gets you everything that is in your production as is, including if you have any deleted records in your recycle bin, it will be cloned. It's like cloning your mobile phones as well. Or when you do a save as of an Excel. So when you do a save as, what happens? It's exact same replica of the Excel that you are currently working on, unless you make some changes later on. But till that time, when you do first save as, it's a copy. So full copy contains exact same licenses, integrations, endpoints, everything that is on the production. This is a very reason it is only one, because it costs a lot of money, because I'm storing metadata and data and it exact matches the licensing as well. So full copy is a clone of your production environment. What is same? Everything, data, metadata, and IDs. Everything is same in only this environment. So full copy will have same IDs as your production environments. It copies both. It's a Xerox. So I don't have to talk about why it has the both, because copy means copy, clone, as is. So it has the exact same metadata, which means your customizations, data, which means the data that you have created. If you do not have any customizations, you are using as its Salesforce environment, no metadata, as is whatever it will be copied. This is a very reason it has a refresh interval of 29 days, because by the time you refresh it, it takes a lot of time. Think about actual scenario where you are working on the projects and you have live environments of a customer. They have millions and millions of records which are accumulated over the period of time. I need to copy all those records from one instance into the another instance. While I am doing that, no one should be able to access it. So your access is halted by the time it is completely done. This process of cloning the production into your full copy or any lower environment is called refresh of the org. Refresh process means getting the latest details, metadata data from your production into your environment, whichever environment you select. That's your refresh interval. So when I say refresh, if you have any changes which have not pushed into production yet, they are overridden. They are gone. So before you actually refresh, you need to have a backup done of data and metadata, and then again you do the refresh. And since it is a very data heavy, it takes 29 days before I do the next refresh. So by the time your sandbox and production will not have the changes. Now, the data limit, since it is exactly same and replica of your production is exactly same whatever you have in your production environment. You can define the templates. I mean, if you don't want entire things, I can also define, okay, I need a subset of the data to be populated in lower environments. I can define my sandbox templates and define which type of a data I want to retrieve. Not all. You only have one full copy sandbox. If you need additional, you need to have the additional purchase, which means full copy. It's similar to your purchasing Salesforce edition and it costs a lot. So usually clients do not go with additional full copy sandboxes unless they have too many of the processes in the releases. But one is by default embedded and included in your license cost whenever you purchase Salesforce. It is available in both unlimited edition and enterprise edition. We'll talk about editions, what these are. But for now, just remember both are available in unlimited. In enterprise, you do not have the full copy. And there is a reason for that. So, partial data. Full copy is exact replica, as is. If I'm having a 10 MB storage in my production, I will have a 10 MB storage in my full copy. If there is already a 10 MB data in my Salesforce production, full copy will also have a 10 MB of a data in my like lower copy, in my full copy. While partial data is somewhat lower version of your full copy. So if you see here, the data limit is 5 GB. So even if you have 100 GB of a storage in your Salesforce production environment, the only possible storage in partial data is 5 GB. Now, if I have a full copy, why do I need a partial data? Partial data helps you when you need or you have too many complex processes based on data migrations and you need a way to evaluate it. There are data related defects. So if you do not have the exact same copy of the data, I may not be able to reproduce that and then fix it. If it is related to my code, I can just debug it in any environment. But if I don't have a data, sometimes it is data related defects. Because of the type of a data that is stored, it is giving me an error. So in order to replicate, I need exact set of a data. That's where your partial data can be useful. Partial data can also be useful whenever you are using it as a staging environment. So before you're actually going live with your release or features, you want to see or run a script one by one, what the process you will follow on production. So that script you can mimic in your production or before production, you can do it in the partial data if you don't want to touch your full copy. Full copy, we usually keep it for UAT testing, user acceptance testing. So business can test it with actual data, not with some dummy data that I will be preparing. And I need to evaluate whether my code is actually able to sustain the load of the data. If there are a million records and my code is failing, what is the purpose of my code? If it is failing with 50 records itself, it will not be able to handle millions of records. And that's where your partial data and full copy can be handy. Since the data limit in this is less, it allows you every 5 days refresh interval. Because there is not much data that I need to copy from the production environment. Metadata never takes too much of time. It's always the data that it takes a lot of time. And that is why as you go downwards, your refresh interval keeps increasing. So you have a 5 GB in partial data. You can also define the templates. Templates means, since I'm saying like, okay, I only need a 5 GB of data. That doesn't mean you'll copy all 5 GB because if you copy 5 GB, your storage is already utilized. You'll not be able to create any new record in the system now. That's why we usually say like, okay, copy 1 GB data or 2 GB data, whatever it is. And then rest of the data you can manually create as and when required for your application testing. For that, you can define a template because that's a recurring process. Every 5 days, if I'm refreshing it, I need a template that can be reusable. And that template you can define in partial data environment. So I can say, okay, bring me 10 customers. Which 10 customers? So all these 10 customers, or let's say these 5 customers along with the related entities for them. So I need customers with the contact information, deal information, and shipment and order tracking. Everything will be copied. You can define and configure these templates. Now, partial data mostly used for your again interim dry runs, and if there is something that you need to reproduce that is data specific that can be replicated in partial data. Then you have a developer and developer pro. Developer pro is only different in a way that it allows a more data to be stored in your environment. So it has a developer has a 200 MB while pro has a 1 GB. But looking at the number, I only have 5 developer pro. So I need to use it wisely. I need to understand what should I use a developer pro for. So pro are usually the best fits for your testing, QA testings basically, or your staging environments where you're merging your code. All those can be performed in your pro. Again, since only 1 GB data is available, the storage limit is 1 GB. I mean, it's you cannot store more than 1 GB data. So in this case, it allows you to every day you can refresh. So today I refreshed it. At the end of the day or tomorrow, I can again come and refresh it. The only thing is, as I mentioned, refresh means pulling everything that is on production into your Salesforce, which means if you do not have a backup, anything that you have done that is in Developer Pro, which is not yet pushed to your partial, full, and production, is lost. So whenever you are doing the Developer Pro and you use it as a staging, we, even if it is allowed at 1 day interval, do not prefer to do it based on how it is configured and for what purpose you are using it. Similarly, developer environments are more flexible. So this is where you actually develop your code. In your projects, you'll be having access to developer environments. Developer environments are 1 day. Why? 200 MB storage only. These are meant for development. Anything that you need to customize, you can do it in here. Then you push it to the further pipeline. This is called pipeline. Pipeline means the first environment, the second environment, the third environment, and the live environment. How that actually goes through, that is called as a pipeline. And that is where first one is developer. So since I have hundreds of developer environments, based on the customer strategy, either it could be assigned one developer, one box, or I can have one release, one box. So there is one feature which is being developed by a team A. So team A can have the one developer or allocated to them. So once they are done, they will merge it in the upper environments. So I can identify early in the life cycle if there are any repercussions of my code being pushed into production. So developer environments are only copying your metadata. These two environments never copy any data, and that's why they do not allow to have the sandbox templates to be copied. What is the purpose if I'm not copying any data from production? Templates are only when you need to copy some selective data from production. So those are available only in partial data and full copy. So developer, developer pro, partial data, full copy. It can keep on changing. So don't only rely on right now what we are learning. Over the period of time, if Salesforce feels like, okay, I need one more environment, which might be having a 10 GB or let's say 20 GB of data along with metadata, and I need two or three. Why? Full copy is costlier. So I want to provide my customers with a flexible way to leverage other environments. So I might introduce another between partial data and full copy. For now, Salesforce provides you developer, developer pro, partial data and full copy sandboxes. So sandboxes are for safeguarding your production features, production applications or your end users. So you, whenever are working on something, are not mistakenly or maybe because of some mishap overriding anything directly. Rollbacks are not easy in Salesforce. Remember this. This is the very reason we have the different types of sandboxes. Now, where can I develop? So I have these many sandboxes. I also have the another org that is called as a scratch org. If I have so many orgs as a developer, how do I understand what should be done in which of these sandboxes? Or on the contrary, what are these capable of? What are these should be used for? Ideal use cases. These are not limited, but most of the times in projects, these are the use cases where we use this. To choose a specific box, there are some guidelines. Why? Based on the type of data, metadata, refresh interval, they are defined for what purpose they can be used. So before making modifications in Salesforce, you'll have access to different types of development environments. Depending on the licensing your Salesforce org has, you can have different types of orgs, or let's say developer environments. The first ones are called as a scratch orgs. Scratch orgs are nothing but temporary, customizable, and disposable development environments. These are specifically used whenever you want to build a new functionality, something that needs to be isolated from rest of the application. Before I integrate it with the actual application, I need to make sure I do a quick POC, technical limitations, or whether it's possible. All these things I can evaluate in Scratch. Why? They have a limited lifetime. They are not free forever. Scratch orgs that you spin will not last for more than 30 days. Their lifespan is less than 30. So after 30 days, they'll automatically expire. You'll not be able to access them. So only the POCs or any feature that is being released in the summer, winter, or any release currently I am working on, I want to evaluate. That can be done in Scratch. So we usually do not prefer any development which is part of your releases in Scratch. Developer can definitely avoid using these sandboxes, which can be time consuming to set up, update, and accumulate. But sometimes I just need to spin quick for the POC, you can use a Scratch org. Developer sandboxes. These are the kind of sandboxes which we saw in our previous slide. They are designed for single developers to test their modifications, improvements. It has a modest size, which is like up to 1 GB. So it is easy for me to always use them. Testing on a smaller scale is possible. I don't need a heavy data. If you need a heavy data testing, you need to go for a partial or your full copy org in that case. On top of your developer, you also have a developer pro, similar to your developer. It just offers or it gives you a bit lighter or extended access on the type of data that you can store. So developer sandboxes, developer pro sandboxes, these are specifically for the feature testing, feature development. So I will start with my developer sandbox. My first environment will be developer environment. Every developer will have its own, or maybe for the feature or the team, they will allocate one developer sandbox. So I will build the feature. Once the changes are made, as a developer, my part is done. It's tested from my side. Now I'm pushing it to the next environment for QA testing. So that is where your partial copy will come, or maybe developer pro will come. Developer pro comes with a bit leveraged on the size of the data. So testing can be done in here. So I can merge my code. My code is ready for tested by QA. So he'll start testing about the feature in my developer pro org. I will continue my development in developer. Next feature, next user story, start building it. Related to the same feature, same release. Once QA signs off, then he can push it to the partial copy or partial copy for basically feature testing. This is interim testing, UAT testing, even before I push it in the full copy. So there will be subset of users who will be confirming it is as per their expectations. And then you finally have your partial and full. Partial means feature testings which are integrated from multiple developer pro orgs in partial copy. So merging of the code, kind of a staging environment, I can use it if I don't want to use full copy because it's only one. I can use my partial copy as a staging, merge my code, do the feature testing, get a sign off from customers or my business. Once it is ready, I can push it to the full copy and then test it further in here. Since my full copy is a production environment's clone or replica, it comes with exactly same data. So it gives me a flexibility in terms of debugging data related issues. Another thing is it also helps me to identify if there are unforeseen circumstances when I'll deploy it to the production, because it is exactly like production. The only difference is production is my live environment. This is kind of a staging where I'm just replicating it. But remember, full copy can only be refreshed after 29 days. Now think scenario where I have a developer environment. I pushed my changes up to partial copy and full copy, but they are not yet in production. And now if I just refresh it from production, it will override all the changes. That's where you need a proper release strategy, refresh strategy. These are all part of your architectural artifacts. You do not have to worry as a developer, but you definitely need to ask about these to your teams. So once you onboard, what is the org pipe cycle? What is the development or release life cycle? All these things are required for you to understand. So you have different types of sandboxes based on which different types of actions can be performed. Now let's think about what exactly happens when I am purchasing Salesforce org. I said like, okay, I need to request a Salesforce environment. So you need to get in touch with your Salesforce representative. They'll help you understand the requirements and number of licenses you require. You will negotiate with them on the pricing. And based on the type of customer you are, either you are a platinum, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, they'll offer you the discount and the number of boxes, and you will get a Salesforce environment for your application building. Think about a greenfield implementation. This is the first time I'm just creating or I'm shifting my application in Salesforce environment. In the backend, what exactly happens when I say I'm purchasing Salesforce org? So whenever I say I purchase a Salesforce org, as I mentioned, you do not actually purchase a Salesforce org. You purchase org level licenses. What are these org level licenses? Org level licenses are additions. Additions define your features, such as, will I be able to use a collaborative forecast? Do I have ability to do a multi-currency or enable multi-currencies? Amounts, which are nothing but your storage allocations, the number of sandboxes that I'll be allocated, number of applications I can support. Everything is dependent based on your org level license. So, org level licenses are the first or entry level licenses that you purchase. So, you basically purchase Salesforce means you purchased a org level license. In org level, what we have is nothing but how many users are actually going to be using or logging into your Salesforce environment. Now, they could be on different personas. They could be developers, testers, business users, admins, non-admins, actual end user applications. I can have 1,000, 10,000, 30,000, any number of users. Every user will need one license. There might be users who will never log in, so I will not consider them. So let's say I'm now reducing it down to 10,000. So I at least need 10,000 licenses. So when you purchase org level, you will also purchase the user level licenses. Your org receives specific number of user licenses. User license define the user permissions, what he can do once he logins. So think about this defines the features that your org will have. Storage, API limits, number of sandboxes. User license is for authentication, whether he is a valid user in my environment. Once he is inside, what he can or he should or she should not be doing. So basically, can I create a new record? Can I create a new account or onboard a new customer? Am I able to delete my records from system? All these are permissions which are driven by your user level licenses. There are certain permissions which are directly controlled on the user level. There are certain permissions which will be extended. So whenever you create user, you assign each one to a license. A user license defines permissions or the capabilities of a specific features that he can access. So if I'm saying my org level license, allows me access to 20 features, my user level license can say, okay, even though my org is enabled with 20, out of 20, this user only needs access to 5. That I can define on my user level license. The user level license consider first as an authentication. Authenticate means easy valid user. Then you have your permission set licenses. Permission set licenses extend whatever is extended or restricted by your user level. So they offer you more functionality to users in your org. So for example, let's say I am an integration user. So I do a lot of integrations as well. My user is also being used in the integrations when I'm pulling the data from external systems like SAP or other databases. If I enable it on my user level, it will be enabled for all users in the system. I don't want that. So in user level licenses, it is controlled through profiles, permission set, and permission set group. So profile means every user will have one profile. So if I'm saying system administrator or let's say HR representative, if I say HR rep, I will enable all the permissions on HR rep, but now I'll not be able to remove it. So what I can do is I can grant 2 permissions on my HR rep profile and then create a permission set to extend the permissions based on the specific user. So within HR reps as well, there will be certain people who will have larger access than the others. That is controlled through your user level license, profiles, and permission sets licenses. These permission set licenses allows you to allocate and assign, create these permission sets. So whenever you purchase a permission set license, you receive user permissions pertaining to that license, accompanying your CRUD permissions. So for example, if I'm saying about an identity connect license, so I can now have a permission that says user identity connect permission. So whatever user license permissions are, I can add additional licenses, which are permission set licenses, and these permission set licenses extend the additional features. On top of that, your org can also have add-on licenses. For example, whenever you purchase an org, it's mostly sales. So sales cloud. So when I'm saying sales cloud, I now also want to enable service cloud into it. So service cloud helps me establish the customer service representations. So basically your contact centers, customer supports. So in order to do that, I need the additional licenses. These are your add-on licenses. So they help you extend the platform. Some are directly part of your sales cloud, which you can just enable the license, allocate it, and then you will be enabling that feature. Some may need connection with external systems like managed packages or your other environments like your marketing cloud, which is completely outside your sales cloud. That cannot be directly enabled on top of your sales cloud. So anything that can be enabled on top of sales cloud that can be added with the add-on license. For example, I need to extend my API limits. I can use a add-on license for that. So whenever you purchase an org, I am getting org level licenses through additions, which defines the features I can access. User level license control what a specific user can do, and it allows him to log into the Salesforce. Permission set licenses allows me additional permissions which are not part of user level licensing, and add-on licenses grants me extension of the functionality. This is permissions. This is functionality. So extension of the permissions, extension of the functionality. So now let's talk about what are the different additions in Salesforce. What exactly mean by this addition? When I say, when I purchase an org, I have requested addition. What is this addition? Addition means, think about when you go to the McDonald's. What happens when you go to the McDonald's? Let's assume we have just started with the McD, the first launch of first shop. Any kind of a restaurant, what they start up with is individual or a la carte items. Then they observe the pattern in which customers are ordering. Once they identify, okay, every time Out of 10, 8 customers are ordering these three items as a combination. They will try to bundle it up. They'll still keep the a la carte, but they will bundle it up based on the customer patterns. So now it gains me first ease of access because I can easily place my order. So faster deliveries because they are already packaged. They are bundled products. Second, I can save the cost. When you bundle, it becomes easier. That is where your addition comes into the picture. So these meals are nothing but based on the frequently ordered items, how I can combine them. So when I compare a meal, meat not only helps my customers to place a faster order, but it's a pocket friendly option for me. So I have the features which I am looking for. I am looking for only 10 features. Let me buy only 10 features. I don't need 20 features along with it, which I'm never going to use. So similarly, Salesforce also comes up with the additions. Additions based on how the customers are currently using Salesforce. These additions are similar to your meals, those are prepackaged. So, what each addition will offer is nothing but what exactly you are offering, the features and services. So, Salesforce offers bundles of features and services, each geared toward specific business needs. These bundles are nothing but additions. They share a look and feel, but vary by functionality and the pricing. So some customers start with a basic edition, then upgrade to the more feature-rich edition as and when my business is evolving. Some may directly start with the highest one. So it depends on first the size of your business, number of users, overall business scale when I'm choosing an edition. Second, what are the features I'm looking for, which are immediately required, crucial for my sales, service, and marketing requirements or processes. Third, scalability. Choose an addition that accommodates your projected growth and future needs. Fourth, budget. Budget means what is the cost of each addition against its offered features and is it a worth for me? Is it a value proposition for me? Will I scale up to that limit? Otherwise, I'm wasting my money on something that is I'm not going to use. You can switch between additions, but it is very difficult from higher to lower because you're reducing the features. So any feature that you have enabled might have to be shifted, and it's a lot of task from Salesforce side as well. So you need to contact Salesforce to lower down. So usually we do not lower down. Even upscaling, we try to get new one and migrate our data from one to other. So if you see here, Starter Suite is nothing but it's a simplest form, simplest feature. It only allows you to lead account contact and opportunity management. So it's very easy. $25 per user per month. Now, these are all documented prices, catalog prices. When you'll actually work in Salesforce on the projects, every customer has their own negotiations based on the tier, number of projects they have delivered, and everything. So this pricing is deferred and it is way lower than what you can see here. But this is a tentative pricing that they offer. So they have $25 per user per month, and then you can get the lead account contact and opportunity management. If you want a professional, which is combination of everything that you get in your starter, plus in addition, you'll get forecast, reports and dashboards, and quoting and contracting. On top of that, if it is enterprise, you can get everything that is in professional, plus additional territory management and workflows and approval automations. So as you move up, everything that is in the lower plus additional features. Enterprise orgs are mostly on the unlimited plus. It gives you the full flexibility, largest storages, more licensing for your users, more features, and that is why either you'll go with unlimited or unlimited plus. So bigger clients are always on the unlimited plus. But you can also see some of the clients are on enterprise. So if you see enterprise, they are mostly for the API driven integration based organizations where I want to have the customization approach. And that is why they do not provide many of the sandboxes. But in unlimited, you'll get everything. So every edition comes up with its own features. So you have essential, starter, professional, unlimited, developer. Developer is the one that we use, which is a free org that Salesforce provides. So it is basically enabled with everything that you need to have as a developer to start developing. This is the one which we will be spinning. So each of these not only differ based on the features, they also differ based on the development feature capability that they offer. So if you look at the comparison chart, developer, essential, professional, enterprise, and unlimited. Unlimited, unlimited plus, it's always the same. Unlimited plus is completely relaxed, no limits. So active lookup filters. So if you see, everything is 5 per object. For validation rules, it varies with each edition. For your profiles, permission sets, your flows, users that you can create in the system, everything is differing in here. For professional, enterprise, and unlimited, unlimited means it is based on the licensing cost. It is based on the licenses that you purchase. If I'm purchasing it for 200, I'll have a 200. If I'm saying 400, I'll get a 400. But look at the number of automations that I can build in here, 4,000. While in essential and professional, I can have 5. In developer, I can have 2,000. That is why we use developer environments to build your POCs, evaluate features, or keeping your reusable frameworks or codes in here. So based on the project, client, and the type of a application you're trying to build, with thinking about future scalability. Do I really need unlimited? Am I gonna grow in that much in next 1 year? If yes, go ahead with it. No issues in that. Otherwise, it's better to keep a lower level first. As I mentioned, from left to right, still difficult, but comparatively much easier. From right to left, which means I am reducing down the feature. I'm cutting down on the features. This becomes much more pain because how will you migrate the features? What will happen to the data that was enabled in that feature? That feature is not supported in enterprise org. So if I'm moving from unlimited to enterprise, I'll have to reduce it from 20 features to 10 features. What about the 10 features additional which I have configured? The data from that, where it will go? And that is why be careful while you're selecting addition. Again, this is not something a developer has to do, but developer should be aware of which is the addition of your Salesforce environment. So once you have the additions, you'll have understanding, or let's say better understanding on what on things you will have in your org. And then on top of this addition, the first level that we talked about was your org level. This is your org level. So addition defines what I will be getting, which features I will be having access to. Then I have a user, which is nothing but a platform licensing. So licensing in Salesforce, there are 3 different types of licenses, as we have already talked about. The first one is user license, a base level license required for you to log into Salesforce. This license determines out of 20 features, which features you can actually access, what functionalities you can access after you log into Salesforce. The second one is a permission set licenses. So as we discussed, permission set licenses enables additional permissions like identity connect, integration users, or data management, or any other additional features from the permissions perspective. While if I need to enable a certain feature, let's say I want to enable collaborative forecasting, or I want to enable the CPQ or service cloud. These are feature licenses. So you'll have the feature licenses which we need to enable. These all are provisioned. We do not say I have assigned a user license. We say we have provisioning the licenses. These define, or these are combinations. So I have an addition. So now I have a first, that is my user will have a user license. One user license. But I can have multiple permission set licenses, multiple feature licenses. That is why Salesforce has provided you the additional permission set and feature licenses, because this is one to one user, one license. But permission set and feature licenses can be multiple. So if I want to just summarize, I can put it in a way where I have the product license, which is my addition. Each addition will then have the platform license, user license, and I can define what each user should be capable of. Then I can also have the add-on licenses for my addition. Whenever I'm looking into, I can also have the additional platform user and permission set licenses, and then I can configure which user can get what. So permission sets or your platform licenses, whatever you want it. But it all works in combination. If you see it, it starts from here. I start combining. This will lead to, okay, I have platform licenses, then I have user licenses and permission set licenses in my addition. Then finally, combination of that will be my addition and also my add-on licenses. So you consider this as a bottoms up. So everything will be rolling up. Whatever you have in the addition, I can control, I can access or extend through my platform and permission set licenses. Each org has addition. Each org will have one addition, one user, one license. Addition defines which features I can be enabled on the org. User license determines whether I'll be able to log in or not and what I can do once I log into the system. Also, while an org must have an addition, these are additional, which are means add-ons means I can have an add-on. If I don't want an add-on, my org can be without an add-on as well. But addition is mandatory. No org can be without an addition. There are different types of licenses. So when I talk about a user license, the base license that we required is called as a Salesforce user license. It is called as a Salesforce. That's it. This determines your base level access, login access. Feature access means these are not included in user licenses, but I'm extending the feature for this user. Platform licenses are, these are specifically configured for enterprise and unlimited. Then you have your identity licenses, which are for single sign-on access. You have Einstein licenses, which will give you the AI, ML, all that kind of an access. Experience Cloud license allows you to build that websites. So your external users can gain access to Salesforce without using your user license, because we saw user licenses are costlier. If I'm talking about $500 per user per month, it is very costly. And these users will be very, or let's say they are less often visiting the websites or less often are part of Salesforce. Think about a customer who is just posting an inquiry. Why would I assign a license to him in Salesforce? He'll never log into Salesforce environment. In these kind of cases, you can use the Experience Cloud license. Marketing Cloud, basically, whenever you are working on campaigns, promotions, all those things are tracked inside your Marketing Cloud, which is a completely separate instance from your Sales Cloud, the one which we request. So you have Marketing Cloud, you have Sales Cloud, you all on top of that, you can have multiple other clouds as well. All these are part of your Marketing Cloud licenses. So I can connect my Marketing Cloud license with my Salesforce. But this is not the one that Salesforce Cloud externally provides. This is internal with a bare minimum functionality. But based on whatever feature you want to enable, you can have different licenses. This is just a high level overview, not even the full list of licenses. If I talk about each product has its own different licensing, which you can find by directly visiting in your Salesforce environment. So if you go directly to salesforce.com, open any product. So let's say I want to look into the Sales Cloud. So I'll click on Sales Cloud. So if you see here, I can click on pricing, and these are the additions or the licensing that can I have. So each of these will differ with the type of products I am currently looking at. So if I click on service and go to my service pricing, See here. Here we have 5. So these kind of things are dealt with considering your sales representative, not directly. So how will I decide? So there are certain questions which you can ask yourself. So whenever you are working on development or you have been assigned as a developer on a project, first thing that you need to ask is what is a project development and deployment life cycle? This tells you how the development and deployment will take place. Then ask about the sandbox or environment strategy. These two are linked because whatever sandboxes environment strategy I have, that will define my development and deployment life cycle. So I will be working in developer environment, then you push it to the QA staging. I can name it anything. So I can have 10 different developer pro and they will be called different QA1, QA2, QA3. But how I need to push it? If I'm done with my development, where should I push my code into? Then you have a sandbox refresh strategy. That means how often your boxes are refreshed. Otherwise, I will lose my change. So I'll need to be prepared accordingly. I need to deploy my changes before that to the higher environments at least so that my code is secure. Then I have a release life cycle. Release life cycle means how frequently I can deliver my changes to end customers. Is it like I can, as and when I'm completing, I'm just delivering it? Or enterprise orgs have a defined schedule. So minor releases every week, once in a week, major releases once a month, or major projects, if there are any, that will be depending on the project plan that they have. But you need to understand what is the release life cycle for deployments. Then you need to understand what are the different tools used for deployments and branching strategy. Versioning, basically. Am I using Git? Am I using Capado for deployment? Am I using Flossom for deployment? Or am I using Salesforce DevOps? Whatever it is. What is the internal code review process that we usually follow? So the code review process is also important because your estimation will differ based on the code review process. For example, if I am in India and the reviewers are all in US time zone, there always be a 1 day lag when I submit and get it review. Again, I work and then resubmit and then get a sign off. So I need to consider this time in my estimation. That's why it is important to understand what is all the deployment life cycle, my delivery life cycle, estimations, and my code review processes. So remember, whenever you onboard, to ask all these questions. Get all these documents, study them, understand them. This will help you to avoid any unnecessary troubles. Right? So now, the last but not the least, what I want you to do is your homework for today is if you don't have a Trailhead account, you need to set up a Trailhead account. If you click here, it will open up a document. It will walk you through step-by-step process on how to create your Trailhead Salesforce account. Then you'll also have to create a developer account. If you already have a Trailhead account, you do not need to create a new one. And this org, you do not need to link it with your Trailhead. This can be standalone. Just for the sake of tracking, it's easy to remember. You can link it, but otherwise you can keep it separate. So where I can create this developer org is nothing but that you create from here. So you can simply go developer.salesforce.com, click on the browse trials, and here this is the one that you need to request. Sign up for developer edition. Remember, username once used cannot be reused. So put your username in a way that it is helpful to remember. For example, your Gmail or your email dot dev03, or maybe you can also add the date that you spend it 0307. Whatever it is, it cannot be reused throughout any product in Salesforce, any of your live projects until your Salesforce expires. and Salesforce is still in the market, so it's not going to be out soon. So username is unique, but at the same time, that cannot be reused. So most of the times, whenever we are on the project, it is based on, for example, if I have Sheetal at the rate nextgenarena.com dot, if it is a QA environment, I'll say dot QA. If it is a dev environment, I'll say dot dev. It is staging dot staging. So don't use these kind of abbreviations. Use anything else. Doesn't matter. You can use dot winter, dot summer, anything. If it is available, you'll immediately see. If it is not available, you can see the error in here. So create one, get your username and password, and today just log in. This is an environment where you'll be using and developing all the code. This will be your lifetime. So anything that we are doing will be in here. So frameworks and everything, you can keep it in here. Anyways, you have a GitHub access, but in case you lose a GitHub access, you can still have the developer edition. All right. So let's stop here for today and we'll continue tomorrow. I'll put up the recording.
I have a question. Like,
Yes, go ahead.
actually, I'm working in the morning time. So if you update as soon as possible, like I can study a little longer in the nights,
Okay.
and then I can catch up with like it's just a request, like because
No, no, no,
I
definitely. I'll
yeah
put it. Yesterday, actually, I was just setting up the environment, so I didn't immediately put it up. Usually,
yeah
immediately after, like it takes, I think, sometimes for me, 15 to 20 minutes to get that recording generated. So
okay
within next
yeah
half an hour, you'll immediately have it.
okay thank you because I I can't prepare in the daytime. That's why I'll get only
No
the
worries,
night
no
section.
worries.
Yeah,
I understand.
thank you. Yeah,
All right then. I'll see you
all
tomorrow.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye.
see you. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.